Hello and welcome once again to Life That Matters with Dr. Sharon Norris Elliott. I'm so happy to welcome you to the show today. If you were with me last time, you know I started a great conversation with my friend Deb DeArmond, who has written a wonderful book, We May Be Done, but We're Not Finished, making the rest of your life the best of your life. And so, hi, Deb, welcome once again.
Thank you, Sharon. Looking forward to our time.
Okay, so last time we talked about my sub category for a few of the episodes that I have been having lately on being 60-sational. Now, before everyone who's not 60 turns off, hold on, because this show is not only for those of us who are 60 and above. This show is for everyone who is going to be 60 one of these days. The encouragement that we are going to glean from Deb's book and that we started with on the last show is invaluable for everyone. And so I am giving a girl, a pat on the back, a high five, a fist bump to all the women who are 60-sational and who are realizing, hey, I'm not finished. I have a whole lot left to give. All right. And so the rest of you on your way to 60, I want you to listen in to this wonderful wisdom and encouragement that we can glean so that even if you are in your 20s, you're going to be able to see, okay, I have a lot to look forward to. So, Deb, let's just go quickly back just for a few minutes on what we did in the last show. And we talked about the word prime. What was the point of your pointing out to us about the word prime?
Well, it's sometimes used in a negative respect, as in, oh, well, she's past her prime, or she was lost in the prime of her life. But when I looked at the word is so full of good information. Prime means top choice when we talk about beef. Something that's of prime importance is of the greatest significance. And it really indicates value. It indicates sort of almost like a level of sophistication is not the right word, but elevation of
Mm-hmm.
what we know, where we've been, how we've used it, and what we're going to do with it now.
I like that. What we know, where we've been, how we're going to use it, and what we're going to do with it now. That was great. Was that off the top of your head, Deb? That was good. Okay. Because Deb is in the prime of her life. And so am I. We mentioned last time how my oldest son, Matthew, loves to write cards to me and say in the cards that he is so proud of what I am doing in my golden years. And so I've decided that I'm going to contact Matthew and tell him, hey, I am in my prime years. Thank you very much, sir. Okay. So we talked about that. And then in the beginning, in the introduction of Deb's book, she gives us some amazing guidance about what we can do to prepare. She gives us some great questions. And if you missed this last time, make sure you go back to the last show and watch through the segment where we walk through these questions. But Deb, remind our viewers what the questions were.
Well, the questions are fairly basic. It's what do I know? What have I gathered in knowledge since in my life? How can I use it to the benefit of others? What do I want to learn? Are there things that I want to learn that I've put on hold, perhaps? That now I have the time and perhaps the wisdom to do it. What have I put off doing? Because that's a tough list. But when we have ignored things, it's probably time to ask ourselves, are we going to do them, or are we going to just simply let them go? And either is fine, but we've got to do something with them. And
Yeah.
lastly, once you've got the answers in your heart, in your head, sit with him to show you, what am I supposed to do? He's got an answer for you.
Yeah. I loved those. I just love those questions. What do I know? How can I use what I know to benefit others? That's two. Three, what do I want to learn? So we're always learning, and how, what do I need to know to add to that? And then what have I put off doing? Many of us as women, we have put our needs on hold for the benefit of the family, the kids, raising the kids, getting the kids through school, getting the husband through all the different, um, elevations, right, on his job, and all those kinds of things. And sometimes we get to the Sixty-Sational years and we forget that there are things on those shelves that we put up there years ago that we loved. And we said, okay, I'll get back to it. And perhaps this is the time. This is the time. So, um, to that introduction, then, um, the juices have started flowing, the wheels have started turning in your head, and now you are encouraged to realize, hey, wait a minute, I'm not finished, right? So, what are you going to do? So, Deb has put together a book of great, encouraging stories about women who have said, you know what? You may be saying I'm done, but I'm not finished. And so, I wanted to talk about some of the stories in the book. So, Deb, I'm going to start okay, with, I think, my favorite story is the one by Michelle McCarthy. And her title is I Was So Not Finished. So, first of all, I love the title. I Was So Not Finished. And she talks in her piece about the gift of writing and how she was encouraged by others, right? To write, and then how a door opened and she went through that and went to a conference, and then she met a person there, and then that person took her on the next step and the next step and the next step until she ended up an author. And I just loved her story because it really sort of mirrors my
Mm.
story about being an author. Do you find that what Michelle said, Deb, mirrors some of your story about being an author as well?
Do you know, it does in many ways, and I don't think it's an unusual path for people. Um, I love to read, but it never dawned on me that I should one day write books. And so when that God nod happened, I was a little hesitant. I was slow to go. But what I discovered is, just like Michelle talks about in that chapter, writing is a team sport. You need folks to come alongside. You
Yeah.
need people who will encourage you. You need people who will challenge you. You need people who will give you critiques that are candid but kind, so they don't devastate you. All of those things were it was from one thing to the next to the next to the next, and all of a sudden you find yourself with an opportunity to publish a book. And
Yeah.
but it doesn't happen overnight. And patience, I have to tell you, Sharon, is not my strong suit,
No.
because I was continually learning. I wasn't that impatient with the process.
Hmm.
It was a very interesting process for me.
Yeah. And I think as we get older, sometimes we get even jumpier about time.
Yeah, I think that's
You know,
probably true.
yeah, time. What, you know what? Time is not going any faster or any slower. than it ever did.
No,
Right? And even when we were 20 and 30, we didn't know how much more time
no,
we were going to have.
no.
So just like now, we don't know how much more time. So I think just making the most
Yeah.
of the time is what's important. I plan to leave some things undone.
Good for you.
And the reason I say that is because as far as much as lieth in me, I'm never going to stop. So then obviously there will be some things undone.
The word says that through God, we can through Him we can do all things. What I discovered is I can't do all things and do all of them well if I
Hmm.
don't get very clear about what God's priorities for me are. And so in the last 5 years, I think I've been able to pare down some of the things I always thought were non-negotiables. I thought I had to do them. I thought they were my responsibility.
Hmm.
The Lord just said, I have some things for you at this period in your life that are going to require you to drop some of those others that you've carried for a lot of years. Not that they were bad, but that it's not
Hmm.
the time for them any longer. That was a big deal for me, Sharon.
Okay. Okay. That's a good word. Reevaluating all the time. Some things we just carry because it's habit to carry them.
Or because other people expect us to.
Right. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to do that,
No, it does not.
right?
Right.
Maybe you've taught Sunday school
Do you know
for
I've been able
50
to dodge
years.
that one. I have dodged that one.
And you know what? Maybe it's time for somebody else to teach Sunday school.
Do you know, even sometimes when we stay too long in a place, we're taking a spot God wants to move someone else into. And boy, I never thought of that. Never
Yeah.
thought of it.
And it's so much easier for us to bow out than for someone to have to tell us to leave.
Oh, yeah, that's painful. That just hurts.
That's just like, yeah, and then so anyway, I think we went on another
We did.
tangent, but that was for somebody.
It was.
All right. That was for somebody. Um, but the open door, the thing I love about the writing um, community, the
Mhm.
Christian writing community, is the willingness to disciple one another. And that is something that I noticed from the very first writers conference 30 years ago that I ever went to. And that was the fact that here were authors whose books I'd read, editors from companies who published the books I've read, um, speakers I had heard up on large stages, here teaching workshops about writing and speaking. And it crossed my mind. These people are teaching their competition. That doesn't even make any sense. But then, yes, it does in the kingdom of God,
Absolutely.
because we are all here for one purpose, and that is to point the way to Jesus.
Absolutely.
And so, if I have learned something in this school of, writing, and I can teach it to you to put in the books and articles and devotions that God is having you to write, and that makes you better so that people can get out of it what God's put into you.
Yeah.
That's the way it's supposed to work.
Well,
That's what discipling is all about.
and we can't be competitive with one another. Comparison is a thief, always. And when God called you to do this program for 60 Sationals, it doesn't mean that there couldn't be another one that's similar or to the same audience. It means that you heard him, and he's wanting to reach a lot of people on behalf of that particular topic.
Exactly. Exactly. So, how about a story that you liked a lot?
Well, I love For Better or Hearse, and it's by Michelle Rayburn. Michelle has a funny bone, and she's not afraid to use it. And so for me, that was one of my favorites. She talks about life after being married for 30 years and how how it caught she and her husband a bit by surprise. She said, "We were okay, but we weren't great." And she said, once that nest had emptied, we struggled a bit together. And
Hmm.
her message really is there's never a time in your marriage that it's too late to say, hey, let's work this out together and let's be the best we can possibly be. I mean, they went to a cabin and secluded themselves for a weekend and really talked about some of the things that had become a frustration or an annoyance, not a huge problem, but that they
Hmm.
found annoying about one another. They talked about what they'd like to have in the relationship. They did an 8-week Bible study at her husband's suggestion that their church was sponsoring.
Hmm.
And I'm so excited about people who are in that stage of marriage to say, you know, we're never going to split up because we still really care about each other, but we're not having much fun anymore.
Hmm.
And I feel disconnected. How great is it that at 30 years of marriage, you say, let's do something about that. And it was about learning, it was about listening, and it was a lot about laughing together. The title, For Better or For Worse, she said,
Hmm.
well, if you're a believer, you believe that it's till death do you part. So that's the stage that you finally get to go, I'm out of here. She's funny. And she's full of the Word of God. And so it for me, it was one of those really wonderful, wonderful chapters.
That's neat. And so, ladies, if you're married, maybe you've been married for a long time. Maybe you have been remarried. But it's always a good thing, right? To work on your marriage, to let your husband know you love him, and to let God know that he's still welcome uh, as the leader in your home. I love that. Another story that I found that was really encouraging to me was Flying the Friendly Skies. And Deb, you actually wrote this story about Carol Pendleton,
Yep.
who you met as an American Airlines flight attendant. And she became a flight attendant when she was 64
Yep.
years old. And I loved her story that she was just so bubbly and happy about being this flight attendant. And she thought when her daughter uh, told her about a job at her company, American Airlines, she thought executive assistant role because that's what she had done during her career. But then her daughter said, no, flight attendant. She thought her daughter was joking, but she got the job. She said the training was intense, but she passed and she graduated. Um, and just the encouragement I got from her um, was the same kind of feeling that I got in starting my new career. The day I retired was the day I started full time as a coach, writing coach, a writing consultant, right? And I started my Authorized Me Academy. Now I had zero students, I had zero people I was coaching, but I put the word out there that this is what I do. And God sent people, and He's been sending people since. And
Yep.
uh, you know, I tell my friends I look up into the corner of my office there above my computer, and anytime there's a new client or something just surprising that happens in the business, I look up and I say, I see you, Jesus. Okay.
Don't you know? Yep.
and, and I saw that in Carol. Um,
She was a delight. I have to tell you, I, in my business where I worked with executive leadership development, I traveled 2 weeks every month,
hmm,
left on Monday, came home on Friday. I did it for about 8 months out of the year with a variety of clients. And you just get so tired of the whole, people who are not traveling on business think those of us who are are having the time of our life, and it's just not the case.
Right.
And here was this fresh, smiling, welcoming. It was like she was inviting us into her home.
Mhm.
She would genuinely look people in the eye and say, "Wow, you look great today," or "I love that sweater." I mean, and it wasn't phony. And
Mhm.
I was just blown away by how she was in a category all by herself from my experience. And when I asked if we could chat for a few minutes, she was so surprised that anybody would take note. Because she wasn't doing it to impress us. She was having a great time.
Right.
And it showed. And she cared about people. And that was so
Mhm.
clear. I thought taking that on at 64, wow, that's just
Mhm.
sheer bravery.
Right. But another thing that it is it's the confidence that I can do what I want to do.
Yep.
I loved that. The freedom of being able to do what I want to do. I know I have friends now who are telling me, girl, we can hardly get onto your calendar. I mean, you are busier now
Mhm.
than you were as a high school English teacher. And trust me, I was busy as a high school English teacher, and that was one of my complaints. I've got all these papers to grade, and I've got, all these assignments and whatever, whatever. And but now what takes up my time are the things that I've decided will take up my time.
Yep.
So whether it's a job working for someone else like Carol, working as a flight attendant, right? She's now working for herself, but in an essence, she is because she's doing what she loves to do,
That's it.
right? And so I would encourage you, Sixty-Sational ladies, right? Do what you love to do. You can find a way, in many, many cases, to monetize it, so that it is helping you to eat every day because we still, want to eat. We still have bills to pay,
Yeah,
all those kinds of things. But now on this side, right, in the prime golden years, maybe I need to put those together. The prime golden years.
there you go.
Um, we can make those decisions, right, that we want to make,
Yeah,
and ultimately that God is leading us to make.
absolutely.
So as we wind down to the end of this um, show that we've been talking about, we may be done, but we're not finished. Deb, give us just a major takeaway, uh, or two. We have about 4 minutes
All right.
left.
Well, I needed to wrap up the book, and how was I going to do that? I needed to come to some conclusions. Um, and I don't know about you, but when I've seen people retire, and I'll use my parents as an example. They were in business together. They owned a retail shoe store, worked
Hmm.
together side by side for more than 40 years. And when they retired, it's almost as though they thought that their role was to keep the carpet flat on the foundation. They they had talked about travel, they didn't do it. They
Hmm.
talked about visiting friends, they found reasons not to. And it was like they lost their imagination.
Hmm.
And it was one of the saddest things I ever saw. Now they were both up in years and they had some
Hmm.
health issues, so I understood. But on several occasions, my husband and I invited them to vacation with us. We did get them to go to Hawaii once.
Okay.
Their retirement plan was basically plan the funeral, make sure the will's in good shape, make certain that nobody's going to be fighting over who gets what, and leaving that list very clear. But beyond that, they hadn't planned to live another 20 years, and they did.
Hmm.
And so I saw a term that I fell in love with, and it's the idea of not a retirement plan, but a longevity plan. What are you going to do with the time you have to show up in your family, in your community, in the church? What do you want to learn? Where do you want to go?
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, unless we have some sort of an imagination and make some plans, it's just talk.
Yeah.
I truly believe my parents would do all those things they had talked about the last 5 years of their life, and they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's so many things that retired folks or 60-stational folks who are still working can do. Mentoring, second careers, returning to school to study fine arts because you never got to,
Yeah.
or pursuing a someday I want to list item.
I like it.
Make it a longevity plan so
I
that
like that. That is the longevity plan. I like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. You were finishing.
yeah. Just know that you have value. You are you are wanted in our world. Not everybody wants us, but mentoring is how women have been helping other women since biblical times.
Yes.
Women helped others have babies and deliver them. It's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And at this stage in our lives, we've got some wisdom. We ought to be sharing it, and we ought
That's
to
true.
learn new things.
That's excellent. I love that. And don't forget about your goal as a grandparent. I am Nana to the three um, best little human beings on the planet. And I'm so excited about that. Well, Deb, we've had a wonderful time. Please get your copy of We May Be Done, but We're Not Finished. And be sure to be with me next time on Life That Matters. Thank you, Deb DeArmond,
Thank you.
and we'll see you next time.